What do you think about housing situation in Canada?
I mean, it's fucking insanely expensive. I'm not making money here. I'll put it that way.
It's a very high priced market to have like an apartment or to buy an apartment or to do anything, to be involved in any way. Like you're gonna pay lots of money.
The housing price is really high. Vancouver or anywhere, any BC lower mainland, everywhere is high. And they keep rising it. So very difficult for the new people to survive here.
Yeah.
That's a big subject because right now it is all over the map. Some people aren't happy with it. Most of the people that I know aren't. The prices are way too high. But at the same token, the person that owns that suite is renting it out. They have to pay huge taxes to the government just to keep that unit. And their mortgage payment might be really high. So they have to recover some of that money, to balance things out. They got to charge a higher rent.
I don't know how people can afford a house these days. Like when I bought my house, right, I was able to afford it. I saved some up. I bought a little bit from my parents, which I paid them back slowly. So I was able to kind of get my foot in the real estate market. But now with the current wage structure of the people that make, and if you want to buy a house, you can't afford it. Well, you may be in years able to afford an apartment and then, hopefully a townhome, but I don't know how you can afford a house now. You just can't do it.
I think the prices are not favorable for younger people, and especially people who are doing jobs that are lower wage in general, like myself, I guess.
It's quite disappointing because of the lack of actual development of low-income housing. It just feels like we're taking affordable homes and big amounts of properties and spaces and building up really expensive high-end condos and high-end places to live and appealing to bring in a lot of exotic money, exotic people coming in to buy high-end goods like super designer stores and stuff. I feel like it doesn't appeal to the actual populace that was living and building the city. As someone, I've grown here for 20-something years, yeah.
Oh, it's been bad for a long time, but it's getting worse and worse, it seems. Unless you've owned property or, had a bunch of land in the first place, then you're doing fine, I'm sure. And a lot of people that wanted to live in Vancouver are now living way out in Langley or in Chilliwack or just further away because that's the only thing that's possible to even consider.
I think it's too expensive here.
I think it's really unapproachable for new people to get into the market.
Oh, it's pretty crazy. The reason I live with my parents is because there's no way I could afford to live anywhere else while I'm working on my degree. Like working on campus and such, it's very difficult because I have to commute over 2 hours to get to school every day, but it's way more worthwhile than actually paying for a house out there just because of how extortionately expensive it is.
Right now it's still difficult for me to find accommodation in BC.
Moving out and trying to buy my own house or get my own house it's a hard thing to do for a lot of people my age, right, in my generation, but I'm not happy about it, but what can you do?
Yeah, it's really hard to make a living, or at least to pay rent and stuff. But I don't know how other people do it with even less. It's very tough. The cost of living is so high because then rent and then groceries and everything, all kinds of different bills that you have to pay. And a lot of places now, it just seems like the rent is going up and up.
It's not great. It's quite bad, actually. You can't really afford to live anywhere that's really populated. There's not really enough housing in any of the populated areas, and if it is, it's really expensive, so you can't really afford anything.
Well, I think there should be more, say, civic housing for people, like the councils, the city of Langley. They should give more rent-to-buy housing, and that's all over the world. There's not enough houses being built for young couples, and especially the housing market is overheating here. It's too hot for young couples to buy, and for these people to get loans off banks, it's near impossible. And for a down payment, to try and get a down payment together. So if there was a lease-to-buy system put in here, it would be a lot better.
I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult for homeowners, but even more so people that are wanting to be homeowners. I think it's hard. I worry about, our younger generation, my kids, for example. I have no idea if it stays the way it's going. I have no idea how they're going to be able to be independent and have a living and have a home in the way that we do.
It just still seems a little insane to me, especially when you're downtown. $4K for a one-bedroom apartment just is not justifiable.
Who do you think is responsible for that?
Possibly the government. Like, who else could it be? I mean, if there's like a cost cap at some point, being like, hey, for the 1-bedroom apartments, there's a cost cap of this one, and for the 2, a cost cap of this one, like a rent cap. I think that would make everything easier.
Our generation will be able to have our home, like own home.
Our generation, I feel like it's obviously a lot harder to get houses or like a place in general for us. I think there's not much we can do except actually like plead and like tell the government, hey, we need to live somewhere, like we need housing, and frankly the prices here right now are they're just not working out, and like our jobs are not paying the living wage that we need to for these rent prices. So do something about it. Like it's important to have a house or like just a roof under your head.
Like it's pretty crazy right now, especially like due to the inflation.
Pretty expensive to most people that are, making regular wage.
It's complicated, that's for sure, especially with interest rates right now that are really high. And wages haven't really followed suit with the rises of home prices.
It's terrible.
Agree. Why?
The rent is just way too high.
Well, I think the issue is more just like the demand. Like there's not that much demand for any low price housing right now.
Vancouver and Toronto are very expensive for people to live, especially for like young people like me.
I would say the increase is quite a lot. Renting is tough, and like buying it's even harder. I think it's really difficult for young people to own property at the moment.
I think there's not enough affordable housing for Canadians across the country. I think it's very difficult to be able to buy a house, and I think the real estate market has just gone like this over the last 10, 15 years especially, but it's been building for a long time.
I think that the housing situation is not going to get any better because of the interest rate. So really I feel bad for the first-time home buyer who either have to face a very high interest rate and they're priced out of the market because they don't qualify, they don't pass the stress test that the banks give them. Or if the interest rate drops, and everyone will go into multiple offers, and then the house prices will rise again. So I feel that the first-time home buyer is the hardest hit because they're between a rock and a hard place.
I'd say in Vancouver it's pretty expensive right now. Very expensive to afford your own home, and I think a lot of people now are looking for alternatives in either Greater Vancouver or looking to rent instead of buying their own home. So
how about you?
The housing has really increased in the last few years, and it's hard to find affordable living nowadays.
I guess it seems kind of impossible to own something. I mean, like maybe an apartment, sure, like a studio, but yeah, like I feel like I'd probably need to partner up with somebody.
Like no one can afford to live here unless you have like 2 jobs or are really rich. But like if you move like inland or up north where no one wants to be anyways because it's cold all the time, then you can afford to live there. But no one wants to live there because it sucks. So
yeah.